Hello. Today is Friday, March 25th, and we've just had a number of astrological transits where, or I should say, ingresses. Planets have ingressed into signs, they've switched signs. And you may have noticed I made a video recently on Mars finally leaving Gemini. Mars is now out of Gemini in Cancer, and that, for one thing, is a very different feel, right? Because we've been used to that Mars and Gemini for a whole, what is it, 8 months or something? It's been a long time. And at the same time, Pluto is now in Aquarius. I did a video that was called Looking Back on Pluto and Capricorn. And yesterday I was actually going to record a video on Pluto and Aquarius, but I had technical difficulties. And I don't know, sometimes I think there is a problem where intuitive types might start to read like everything like a synchronicity, or I think with Pluto and Aquarius there is a danger of reading it in a way where I start to get a little bit, because I'm pretty good at avoiding my delusional, paranoid conspiracy things. Although I am an astrologer, so a rational person may say that that's wacky to be into astrology or something. But the kind of thing of like, is it a synchronicity that I'm having technical difficulties, or is like the super AI computer that rules everything filtering out what I'm trying to upload? You could go in these funny directions, but I won't do that. But I feel that when you're talking about Pluto and Aquarius, there's that kind of technological kind of shadow hanging over everything, and talk about AI and stuff like that is definitely relevant to Pluto and Aquarius. One of the things, though, after not being able to upload this video properly, one of the things I realized was that not only, this is kind of, we've already talked about the fact that Saturn is now in Pisces as well. But what to consider about using, the way I use rulerships is that I don't use traditional planets as rulers for any of the signs, right? So when I'm talking about Aquarius, I view Aquarius as being Saturn ruled only, and there is a Uranus thing maybe you could argue for, but that's not how I do astrology. And the fact that Saturn was in Aquarius for such a long, well, not such a long time, for the last 3 years, and now it's in Pisces. It's something strange about how the Saturn ingress and the Pluto ingress have, it's almost like musical chairs in a way, right? Where Saturn has gotten off of the seat in Aquarius and the Pluto's on the seat. It's like a government election or something, and one president has stepped down and passed it over to the next president. And but the thing is, it's a bit of an uncomfortable situation, I'm starting to realize, because in this traditional scheme, Saturn is the only ruler of Aquarius. There's something about traditional astrology you have to understand, that some signs have detriment and whatever. They have all these dignities, right? The Aquarius doesn't have any falls or exaltations. It's only Saturn that's the domicile of Aquarius. And you can contrast, like Libra has Venus, and Venus as the domicile and Saturn as the exaltation lord, and Mars is in its fall in, or its detriment in Libra, right? Saturn, the sun doesn't do well in Aquarius. The sun is in its detriment, but it doesn't it's more simple. It's just a sun and Saturn thing. If we get into the decan rulers, the first decan of Aquarius is ruled by Venus, actually. I think there's a system where you use 2 decan rulers at the same time, and I think that's Venus and Mars. And one of the things I was doing in my last video was that I was using this decan schema to get an idea of what the meaning of this first Aquarius 1 is all about. And I was reading from this book called The 36 Secrets from Susan T. Chang. And the chapter she has on this decan is called Winners and Losers. And it's sort of, I was playing off this theme in my video, but one of the things that I am this is the thing about the synchronicity maybe of the video not uploading very well, was I have to admit that I think that I was not, there's the tendency for me to be imperfect in my presentation and to put things in my videos that I might regret later. And the fact that my video was not uploading, it actually felt like a kind of a moment of grace, because I kind of felt there's this moment where I was reading and I don't know, I probably just kicked my leg, unconsciously, and kicked the stand that I have my camera on here, and it all kind of fell, and I was like, that's not a good sign. Like, if I'm reading this and I feel uncomfortable enough to kick the iPad over, it's probably an intuitive sign that something's off here, right? And I think there's something about my own, obviously getting triggered, my own attachment to winning or losing, or that not approaching the topic from a very clear-headed place of neutrality and being pulled out into the dramas and stuff like this, right? And so I was kind of thinking, should I redevelop this idea, or maybe that's what I'm thinking. My approach now is to approach the same idea, but to try to be more conscious of the problems where I might be getting affected by it in the wrong way, and to be conscious of what message I'm putting out on the internet while I'm doing it. So I'm not making content that I would regret making, right? But still approaching the thing is, when you got Pluto, is the difficult planet to deal with. As if you know anything about Pluto, it's kind of a malefic in a way. It has to do with power, control, manipulation, corruption. There's all sorts of stuff about Pluto that could be really difficult, right? And then when you put Pluto in this decan, the first decan of Aquarius, and then you kind of see where the rest of the other decans of Aquarius that we're going to be going through, it paints a picture that there could be some cause for concern, I would say. And also, it's one of the things I don't think I was aware of enough while I was making the video yesterday, was appreciating the fact that there's a tendency in astrology videos to treat everything piecemeal, where we're like, today, there's so much stuff going on, so today we're going to focus on this one archetype, and I'll tell you all about Pluto, and then and tell you all about Aquarius and all this, and then, but it's like, yeah, but so, well, what happens with Saturn and Pisces? Because Pisces is, in aversion. They don't see each other, right? And so it's like the owner of Aquarius is moved doing some business, and hey, watch the place while I'm gone. But the owner doesn't see anything going on in the house, and Pluto's there, and it's not Pluto's domain at all, right? And it's sort of like, but with the traditional dignity system, I think there's an issue, because some people say that the dignities they mean something, but they're not as just. There's different views on the dignities, right? I tend to view the dignities, if I see good dignified planets, that's a good thing, right? Because that's what it means. But other people might be, it's just a certain flavor to have a certain planet and a certain sign, and this is just when the planet isn't, the flavors in its strongest kind of, where the most undiluted flavor or something like that, right? But there's something about what Saturn stands for as being something that creates structures, creates boundaries, creates a kind of a system of order, and stability and stuff like this. That they're the positive things about Saturn. And that when Saturn's in its own signs like Cancer, that's the opposite, Capricorn and Aquarius, Saturn is able to do these things well, right? And some people might complain about going through a very strong Saturnian period of time because it's too limiting, there's too many boundaries, things are too structured or something. But The other thing, now we don't have that. Now Saturn's in Pisces, which is much more loosey-goosey. What can I say? And then after that, Saturn's going to be in Aries, where Saturn's in its fall. So Saturn's gone from being strong to not as strong to really not. Then in the future, it's not going to be very strong at all while it's in Aries. And then we're going to have Saturn and Neptune together while Saturn's in not a good position. And so it's going to be what we appreciate. If anybody has found something Saturnian to appreciate over the years, we've been going through COVID. If you can find the silver lining in that Saturnian rainbow, whatever is there is going to gradually crumble and fall apart, and we're not going to have that strength, that support there, and we're going to have to deal with that. And so I think that could be one of the main themes right now is sort of like, Pluto also stands for like a kind of rot and corruption, and where Saturn was strong, now we're kind of looking at, okay, what isn't strong, or what is strong in a way that is corrupt or perverse, or also Pluto can be like fixated. Pluto can just be like, has this thing like the pet, like if you've got a pet peeve that you will not like let go of, like if this thing just irritates you and you will never let it go, and you'll just, it's like the hill that you're gonna die on or something like that. Like the unfortunate thing about Pluto is that it can have that quality where you're like, I'm just not gonna give up, I'm gonna be an asshole about this for the rest of my life because it's like, and you can't change me or something, right? It's like, oh dear, okay, I guess we're just gonna have to work around that one. Like, I think Pluto Aquarius can be a little bit like this. Yeah. And I wonder if I should go to do the Susan Chang reading. Well, I'll do it. Oh my goodness. This is the one that, I don't know. I felt like this got me in trouble last time, but I'm like Pluto in Capricorn, in Aquarius, being fixed and stubborn and not giving up, even if it's maybe a bad idea. Like, hopefully I can do this better, right? So, in Crowley's Thoth Tarot, they call this deck, the tarot card that's associated with the Lord of Defeat, right? And if anybody has a problem with me using Susan Chang's book, 36 Secrets, where we're talking about tarot cards and decans, mixing up tarot and astrology, I know some people don't like it, but I'm not going to waste any time explaining this one right now. My last video, I probably wasted like 20 minutes doing this long-winded spiel about different astrologer friends that I know and the whatever, the systems of decans and planetary. It's just a bunch. Let's just get to it, okay? I just think, as a qualification, I know some people don't do astrology like this, and that there's different ways to make associations with tarot cards and stuff. But I like Austin Coppock, and I'm gonna buy his book when he finally 36. He's got another 36 Faces. Yeah, that's another good one I recommend. But we're all waiting for him to get the reissue of that out. And this is what I'll just read the bit here. What is going on here? As we arrive in the Aquarius half of Saturn's domain, the Five of Swords reveals to us the aftermath of what looks like an extremely uncomfortable confrontation. Someone has won, but at what price? Behind him, his foes stand stunned, calculating or grieving like victims of a mugging. What will they do? Hurt feelings radiate from the scene as if carried by cold and shifting wind. The winner's smirk suggests that in the thrill of victory, he is yet to comprehend the grave loss of goodwill he has incurred. It's what I call the card of winners and losers. Whatever game we play, someone must win and someone must lose. And we all have feelings about that. The passivity hypothesis. The major arcana associated with the Five of Swords are the Empress, Venus, and the star Aquarius. Both are faces of the goddess. Faces many of us associate with fertility and hope, creativity and peace. None of that seems to be much in evidence in the Five of Swords. Why? There is the Venus in this Venus ruled. Where is the Venus in this Venus ruled first decan of Aquarius? In assigning this card to this decan, the Golden Dawn. Okay, I'm just gonna skip the Golden Dawn thing because, to be honest, I'm not familiar with the gold. I'm not qualified to get into Golden Dawn stuff, so I'm kind of wasting. But there's something about a Mars and Venus conflict, basically. And Crowley says, Gebura, as always, produces disruption, but as Venus here rules Aquarius, weakness rather than excess of strength seems the cause of disaster. The intellect has been enfeebled by sentiment. The defeat is due to pacifism. The most memorable phrasing of this viewpoint has to be Lon Duquette's. Venus rules Aquarius, and for a moment she is very happy to have him as her date. After all, they're both pacifists. They are a friendly, mellow, and sentimental couple. Unfortunately, the sensitive pair has shown up at the wrong party. A terrible fight has broken out in a very rough and well-armed area of Kabbalahville, the Gebura, the House of Mars. Naturally, Venus and Aquarius volunteer to be peacemakers, but they're just too nice, too peaceful, and too weak to handle themselves in this violent neighborhood. This is a consistent argument as far as it goes, but I never felt it explains everything that's going on in the Five of Swords. It's a really complex card, and to me it's not enough to say Mars cancels out Venus or the weak suffer at the hands of the strong. Those are statements may well be true. There are a few other ideas with the blah, blah, blah. He kind of goes on here. But the main thing about this, it stands out for me. I mean, there's also, I feel like the way I was approaching the idea yesterday got off track because get triggered my own maybe insecurities about my own. This is what yesterday I was looking at it in the context of everything that's happened since Pluto has been in Capricorn, and I don't know about you guys, but I've been through a lot with Pluto and Capricorn. I mean, it's a 15-year chunk of time. A lot of stuff happens, right? And that I kind of have this attitude that there were struggles that I went through that I actually made progress with, things that I got better with, certain goals that I set for myself that I was able to achieve, certain milestones that I was able to make, and there's in certain way that I'm happy with how I've been able to progress while Pluto was in Capricorn, and that I've been able to overcome some obstacles. Now, there's also, on the other hand, it's sort of like a when you win some, you lose some situation, where there's certain things that when I was in the thick of it, well, Pluto and Capricorn, there are all sorts of goals and desires and things that I may have wanted that I was not able to make happen, problems which I was not able to resolve, things which I wasn't able to make as much progress on, right? And the whole, I think I was overcome by the wrong spirit or the wrong energy yesterday, and I think if there's anything to be said about this is not to I was maybe trying to trigger the drama around winning and losing intentionally to make a point of being beyond that or something, but I really wasn't. I was really just falling victim to the drama of it, I think, right? And it wasn't really, obviously I wasn't above it at all, I guess, in the way I was making the video. It came off resentful, you know what I mean? And you're resentful of the losses and arrogant of the victories, you know, rather than showing humility, right? And it's sort of like when if you're arrogant about your victories and you're resentful about your defeats, and Pluto is going to be there. It's not like the whole thing too about, it's like kind of that thing about planting seeds and what's going to happen while Pluto is in Aquarius and what kind of foot you're starting on and how you're getting the ball rolling and stuff like. And it's not a good place to go into this with a lot of resentment and a lot of hang-ups and all this. So it's maybe a good reminder for this ingress. You know, just be mindful of this stuff, right? I'm not sure what to say. But, yeah, I mean, I guess the whole point, though, is that another reminder is when you're thinking about progress in life. There's something I was something on in the internet that I don't know if I should just stay off Facebook, because a lot of times I find it to be discouraging, basically, just to see what the state of things are like. And I don't no, it's more discouraging because I don't think Facebook is always that healthy. And I don't there's plenty of people with criticisms about social media. I don't have to spend too much time on that. You can probably know where I'm going with it. But I got a Facebook friend posted one of these things about, Psychology Today, talking about whatever was it, the science of understanding compatibility between partners or something like this, and like partners like value, like, but you're talking about, like, I don't know. I'd have to look in this more in detail, but to me, what it sounds like is like if people do these psychological surveys and stuff like that, where they'll be like, ask you to score something from 1 to 10, right? But that's not a very objective way to measure something, because you like one person's definition of what a 5 and a 6 may be different than somebody else's definition of what a 5 and a 6 may be, and like, but this has created this whole thing about like, or we have this issue of like for romance, whether somebody's out of your league or something like that. But it's created this situation where you're like, oh, you have to score your partner by, or potential attraction on, like, do you rate somebody to be a 10 or a 6 or a 7, and it comes out of what, by how good they look or what. But this, the whole point though is that people have this idea of, like, another idea. Where am I trying to go with this? I'm talking like Pluto and evolutionary astrology or something like that. I didn't watch very much of it, but I'm trying to see what other perspectives are like. I watched a little bit of an evolutionary astrology video, and the guy was talking about how Pluto either wants to merge with Source or separate with Source, but that they're talking about the evolution of consciousness, and that is very much tied into this thing that is a spiritual traditions that are all about the cessation of desire and enlightenment and stuff like that, with like Buddhism and stuff like this, where desire is the cause of suffering, and that Pluto can stand for like the fixation of desire, or also the transformation of letting go of that and stuff like and whatnot. But the when it comes to the whole thing about the victory and the defeat of the first decan of Aquarius, is that there may be desires that you had, the battles that we were trying to win and stuff like this, the goals we're trying to achieve. At some point in time, there's an issue with the first decan, that first decan of Aquarius, where it's like the evolution of consciousness may not have actually anything to do with the goals and desires and dreams and things like that you're trying to achieve. You know what I'm trying to say? Is that I think that's maybe an important one for Pluto and Aquarius. Is that I think there's a tendency for people who are trying to market a message to people. I don't know what maybe I should not jump to any conclusions about what kind of people watch astrology videos, right? That maybe people don't mind having messages like this. But if Pluto's about transformation, if you want to take that angle, and then and maybe one of my issues with this decan of Aquarius, that's about, it's kind of like the peace treaty that's signed after the defeat or after the victory. And that Pluto there, I feel like, stands for these bitter feelings of resentment that are kind of like unresolved tension, where I wish I would have won this, I wish I would have achieved that goal, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, I can't, like, but there's something like some goals may not be yours to achieve, but then even regardless, there's something about Pluto and Aquarius that I think is really challenging what those actual goals and ambitions and those drives actually are. And that there's this thing about, you also have to consider that because Pluto's so far out, Pluto the moon is the closest thing to the earth, right? And the moon stands for family and comfort and children and all moods and emotions and feelings and stuff like that. And then as you get further and further away from that, Pluto stands for something that could be very indifferent. That could be like you have these things you wanted to achieve and that or things you did achieve. Either way, good and if you won or you lost, Pluto may not even care. I mean, say you good for you that you won what you won. It's now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. We got something else to do now. It's like Pluto, and you're like, and no, Pluto's like, no, this is Pluto shit. You're gonna do something else now. You're not gonna do that. And there's something about this whole thing about like power and control, and it could also just be adapting to circumstances. But there's something about also force. There's my goals, my ambitions, what I want to do, and Pluto, no, sorry, you're not doing that. We're gonna force you to do something now. If you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. You have to do this. Life or death. There's things like things like that with Pluto, right? That have exerting force and power and control, and the desire to break free from that, right? And these are the kinds of the issues that we might have to worry about with Pluto and Aquarius. And I'm just doing this is something that I'm kind of like the idea I'm developing out of the mess of my last video, because my last video didn't turn out very well, but I'm trying to be a bit more aware of it, and just having things organically kind of come to mind now. Well, okay, this is my long pause at the end of the video, I guess. It's almost half an hour. I don't know. I guess we'll see if YouTube likes this one. We'll see if the omnipresent AI entity that monitors which of my videos are appropriate. I'm just kidding. But like that's one of the kind of it kind of feels like that though. Like, is there some sort of intelligence that's going to that, or is it just like this? The kind of the weird mysticism of technology. Like, there's one of the things I'm interested in with Pluto in Aquarius is the topic of technological gremlins. And I have to admit that after making this video that I had trouble uploading, I went and watched Adam Ellenboss's video on Uranus in Taurus, and he was talking about Dylan going electric, but it was kind of ironic in a way, because as he started talking about the technology and going electric, it was like all his technology started failing, and I'm like, that is uncanny. That is not just, something's going on there, man. But it was also the same day I was having a lot of problems, so it made me feel a little bit better that I'm not the only person who has these issues with my technology sometimes. But there's a mysterious thing that's like the gremlin in the machine that there's like, I think, but I don't also want to be, I think people who don't know much about computers that are, you can, there's something, I'm also appreciating stuff about like mental health and, that I think that you gotta be careful too with the intuition to not, there are synchronistic resonances, but sometimes it's like literally just a computer glitch, or is literally like there's a switch that you forgot, like there's some actual technical thing that you don't understand that you have to do to make it work. It's not just like the computer gods are against you and the juju's off, and that it's, you know what I mean? Like, that's another thing about Aquarius is that like there's the technical scientific side of Aquarius, with Saturn and Pisces, though, this is the thing. Saturn's in Pisces, and Saturn's going to head with Neptune. The ruler of Aquarius is getting involved with Neptune and Pisces. So there's this weird intuitive thing where you're kind of like, is it a glitch, Or is the magic computer AI god demon monster watching and judging me? It's like, but you're like, no, don't go there. That's crazy. You're gonna go nuts, right? So these are kind of ideas that I'm, as somebody who's in mental health challenges, I'm like, I know people who could just go way down the rabbit hole and lose their minds with stuff like this. So there's a sort of like chapel perilous quality. Be careful, everybody. Watch your sanity, and take it easy, and welcome Pluto and Aquarius.